the small arms used by the US troops in the battles of the Korean War, including in General Douglas MacArthur's brilliant landing at Incheon in September 1950, were much the same weapons used to win World War II against Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. A firearm that has become iconic in the imagery of the Korean War is the US Carbine. The carbine is a handy weapon for the individual whose duties take him to the line only occasionally, for rear area troops dealing with minor threats to their local security, and for minor escort and convoy duties where there is a danger of being jumped suddenly and at close range. For example, 3 men in a jeep, moving through country where they might be jumped by a small enemy group at a bad spot in the road, are doubtless better protected if they carry 1 Tommy gun and 2 carbines, rather than a Tommy gun and 2 M1 Garand rifle. Although US production of the M1 Carbine ceased at the end of World War II, enough carbines had been produced to supply the needs of the US Armed Forces for decades as well as supplying US allies. However, US arsenals carried out extensive overhauls on a substantial number of those World War II carbines, upgrading them to late war configuration. Stocks of the carbine were to prove sufficient for post-war needs, though most used in Korea were of M2 configuration. The M2 carbine included conversion parts that allowed for select fire operation. In addition to purpose-built M2 carbines, many M1 carbines were upgraded to a select fire configuration. These lightweight, compact carbines entered the battlefields of Korea, where they offered much more firepower in their select fire configuration than the semi-auto-only M1 had offered during World War II. Its handiness, lighter weight, and less bulky ammunition made it popular with combat non-coms and officers alike. US soldiers and Marines seemed to feel that the carbines performed quite well in comparison with the Chinese-supplied PPSH-41 burp gun. Mark Goodwin's US infantry weapons in combat offers good insights into how GIs fighting in Korea viewed the weapon. Jack Wallentyne served in Korea with 25th Infantry Division and had a chance to use virtually every US infantry weapon. He had distinct opinions on all of them, including the M2 carbine. Wallentyne notes that he never saw an M1 carbine in Korea, only M2 carbines. He especially liked the carbine for night patrols when he would carry 300 rounds of ammunition. Ranges were generally under 50 feet and often much closer, so the carbine's fast handling, high rate of fire, and large magazine capacity were all advantages. Wallentyne notes, too, that criticisms of the carbine round not penetrating Chinese winter clothing were false, based on his experience. He shot numerous Chinese in their padded winter clothing and found that the bullets penetrated all the way through the bodies and clothing. At a range of 100 to 150 yards, Wallentyne found the M2 accurate and still with enough killing power to finish an enemy. He specifically notes that it was much better than the Russian PPSH-41. As a result of his combat experience, Wallentyne actually preferred the 15-round magazines to the 30-round magazines, as he could get much lower with the shorter magazine when he hit the dirt. John Taylor, who served as a machine gunner with 40th Infantry Division in Korea, noted why infantrymen often preferred the M2 carbine to the M1 Garand for night patrols. His views on the carbine are also featured in Goodwin's book.
We often had to lend our carbines to the infantry because when they went on patrol, they didn't want to go with their M1s. They didn't have enough carbines of their own and needed ours. These were M2 carbines, and I had 3 of those 30-round magazines taped together. They would come by almost every night and borrow the weapon and ammo.
On an outpost named Bruce in the Bunker Hill area of Korea on the night of September 4th to 5th, 1952, one of the best documented cases of the Korean War of a US carbine helping to turn the tide of battle was recorded in the award of the Medal of Honor on October 27, 1953, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower to one young U.S. Marine Private First Class Alfred Lee McLaughlin. He kept firing his 2 machine guns alternately, notwithstanding his painful wounds and blistered hands, until the guns became too hot to hold. Then he carried on with a carbine and grenades until some 200 Chinese lay dead or wounded in front of him. After leaving Korea, McLaughlin unofficially took the IBM carbine home with him as a war trophy. Because there were a substantial number of criticisms of the carbine during the Korean War, noted military historian and analyst Marshall carried out a combat evaluation of its performance during the Korean conflict. Many of the criticisms seem to be directed primarily at problems with full automatic reliability of the M2 carbine, especially in the extreme cold weather during the Korean winter. One such witness is Joseph R. Fisher, 1st Marine Regiment. He was speaking of the defense at Hageree. The 1st Marine Division regarded him as one of its ablest and most objective company commanders. These were his words.
About 30% of our carbines gave us trouble. Some wouldn't fire at all, others responded sluggishly. But the main reason my men lost confidence in the carbine was because they would put a bullet right in a chink's chest at 25 yards range, and he wouldn't stop. This happened to me. The bullet struck home, the man simply winced and kept on coming. There were about half a dozen of my men made this same complaint. Some of them swore they had fired 3 or 4 times, hit the man each time, and still not stopped him.
Complaint against the inaccuracy of carbine fire was general throughout 1st Marine Division following the chosen reservoir operation. In this action, there was considerable daylight fighting over a period of 2 weeks against enemy forces moving within moderate distance. These testing conditions do not occur frequently in Korean warfare. Kotori, Hageree, and Udumni were all virtually siege operations, with the enemy pressing forward around the clock. There was thus a real opportunity for marksmanship to count. The accuracy of the carbine did not meet the requirements of the situation. Commanders noted that it took 2 to 3 engagements at least to settle their men to the automatic feature of the carbine so that they would not greatly waste ammunition under the first impulse of engagement. Greatly to the point are the words said by SFC Joseph P. Reeves, George Company, 27th Infantry Regiment, about the weapon.
It fires too fast. It'll get off 30 rounds before you know it. That's wasteful.
Concerning the carbine, there was comment of the same kind in every company critique held in Korea. Although enumerating the criticisms of the carbine, Marshall does note at least one instance in which the full automatic capability of the M2 allowed one machine gunner to engage the attacking Chinese, who had overrun his machine gun and wounded most of the crew, at close range with his M2, and kill or dissuade them from pushing home the attack while his comrades made it to safety. More than 70 years after the end of Korean War, the US Carbine is still one of the US military weapons that generates the most interest among shooters, collectors, and those with a casual interest in military weaponry. The above is all the content of US Carbine in Korean War. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Feel free to leave any questions or topics you'd like us to address in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in.